Big-time Hollywood celebs making a mockery of COVID rules at the Super Bowl, frolicking around the big game maskless without a care in the world, while students in the same state are punished and forced to cover up inside and outside of their classrooms. The NFL warning fans beforehand to comply with all LA County health and safety protocols. Masks were given out at the big game, but few of the more than 70,000 fans were seen wearing them. Repeat offender, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, once again holding his breath, allegedly, after he got caught maskless yet again in this photo. It all begs the question, when will all Democrats finally give up on mandates that their biggest supporters keep breaking? It doesn't sound like President Biden will be coming around. He says opposing mask mandates isn't about freedom.
Many of those people won't be wearing masks, despite the local law in Los Angeles. What is your message to people who want desperately for this to be over and to be able to resume the lives that they remember?
Well, look, I love how people talk about personal freedom. If you're exercising personal freedom puts someone else in jeopardy, their health in jeopardy. I don't consider that being dealing with freedom.
And what happens when you try asking Democrats where they actually stand on the issue?
I gotta tell you that I had a very hard time getting straight answers out of Democrats on the Hill this week as to whether or not they thought it was time to lift mask mandates, because in part they're listening to their governors, in part they're listening to their constituents, in part they're looking over their shoulder as to whether or not they have a re-election or not. So many of them were like, we should follow the science. Okay, well, your governor's saying one thing, the president and the CDC are saying another. Which one do you think is the science? It was very hard to nail people down on that question.
Okay, so I'll start with you, Dana.
Okay.
Which is the science?
Well, if they were actually following the science, the kids would have been the first ones to not have to wear masks. And unfortunately, the kids are basically at the mercy of the teachers' unions, which seems to make no sense to me. I actually think it's good news that 78,000 people went to the Super Bowl and ignored the mask mandates, which means that basically everybody else can too, except for the kids. Yeah. But that's when the absurdities will turn into outrages. And also I think about Garcetti, who had the nerve to say what he said about, oh, well, I didn't inhale while I was...
Yeah, I held my breath.
I held my breath. And then he said, does that make you happy? And then he thwarts it again. So basically, these people that are in charge of these cities, they don't care about the citizens. They think they're stupid. They don't care at all about them. And they get to go to the Super Bowl where they, he got a free ticket, I'm sure, because he's the mayor. And everybody else is like sitting there going, but my kids still have to wear a mask. And any minute now, you're going to see all these reporters, is in terms of herd mentality, they're going to start to write another round of articles about they're so concerned about the lack of trust in institutions in America. And then they don't have the nerve to look at themselves in the mirror.
So, Jesse, are these people, I mean, do they really think that we're stupid?
Yeah, yes and no, because as a celebrity, you have to be seen. And you understand that, Judge. It's actually more unhealthy to not be recognized when you're a celebrity than to catch COVID when you're a celebrity, and that is a medical fact.
Right.
Yes.
How are
Science.
people going to know benefit or at the Super Bowl if they're wearing masks? The point is to be seen. And why haven't Fauci and Biden come out today and shamed all of these people? Because this was on what? It was 100 million people watching, flouting these rules. These guidelines are here to save lives, Judge. And to do that sends a wrong message. I'm shocked Fauci's not on every single program shaming these people. I think actually what happened is when the people in Los Angeles saw Magic Johnson, who has AIDS, a pretty serious comorbidity, not care and not wear a mask, I think people figured maybe they didn't need to wear one also. I would love to be able to watch children host a TV show today. Imagine if kids had their own TV shows. There would be a lot of banging on the desk today. A lot of, do as I say, not as I do kind of stuff, because you have 70,000 people shoulder to shoulder screaming inside, and then you can't have 12 children inside without a mask on. It makes no sense. The only reason kids still have to wear masks because they don't have lawyers in TV shows. If they did, obviously this wouldn't happen. I have a new thing, what I do with masks. I don't carry one out. I don't think anybody here does, but when you don't carry one out and you go into a store and then they hassle you and they say, put a mask on, you say, I don't have one, sorry. And they either slink away or they give you a free mask. So then you put the free mask on, and then as you leave, you just take it off and you drop it in the wastebasket and you walk out. And that's kind of a passive-aggressive way for me to fight the man.
Okay. Well, that's really well thought out.
Thank you very much.
All right, Harold, what about the fact that Biden says that if you don't wear a mask, it's not a matter of your personal freedom?
Well, I think in fairness, what he said was your personal freedom if it infringes on someone else's health or freedom. But your larger point I get. And I think that Democrats and Republicans, the country alike, is coming to grips with the fact that we have made great strides against this virus. We've talked about the numbers. The number 80% more have one dose, 65% are two dosed, 43% of people who are eligible to be boosted are boosted. A year ago, I wasn't vaccinated. I didn't get fully vaccinated till the beginning of April. So the conversation today versus where it was a year ago is far different. And now politicians and public health experts are really not dueling as much as trying to reconcile things. I think it will be people, we've said on this show before, Greg, you said it a few weeks ago, that it will eventually be the people who will push the politicians and push our health experts to tell us when and where, I should say, go faster in how they're doing things. Now, with kids, my kids are now vaccinated. I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. I feel far more comfortable going out, being social, knowing that if I do go home by some weird chance and transmit something, that my kids are not going to have to, likely not going to have to be hospitalized. But 12 states, blue states, loosening these mandates and restrictions, I think is a positive thing, and I think everybody should take a victory lap, President Trump and President Biden.
Do you plan on giving your kids the vaccine?
They already have it. Mine are 6 and 8, so my kids have been vaccinated since early December. I didn't hesitate at all.
Interesting. All right, Greg, would you like to wrap it up?
I would love to wrap it up.
Go right ahead.
Especially for you.
Oh, thank you.
Did you
On
get
Valentine's.
Did you get my gift?
No, I didn't. I'm afraid.
You should. I forgot to put holes in it.
Oh.
We're seeing kind of...
That's mean.
I don't even know what that means.
I
How
don't
can
know
be
what
mean?
it meant,
We
but-
keep complaining about hypocrisy. I think we have to just admit that talking about hypocrisy is like talking about oxygen.
Yep.
It's just never going to go away. So it's almost pointless. The other thing is it is about who are you to allow who says what is infringing versus not infringing. The moment you get into a car, there's a potential of infringing a pedestrian's rights, right? But you still get into a car. You see the president and the media redefining the idea of freedom. That in a weird way, when somebody talks about freedom, for example, the truckers, it's something like a dog whistle for anti-vaxxers or even fascism. You should be really be very wary of anybody who talks too much about freedom, which is bizarre coming from an American president. We're all about freedom. We're also seeing a new kind of virtue signaling here, which is I can do what I please as long as I tell the children to mask up. Then that's my job. That's every governor and every mayor in every liberal city has been doing this. It's how famous actresses who have really bad reputations say, but I care about climate change. So I can still be an absolute jerk. So what you're seeing is kind of an insistence of masking up kids to assuage their own guilt. Yeah. They're basically just encouraging child abuse so they can continue having a good time. So I don't know. I think we live in a two-class system. And by the way, we called this. Again, it was another 5 life predictor. We said the Super Bowl, this was going to happen. It's just declare it over before it happens. We have a two-class system. The one that wants to do what it wants and the one that wants to tell you what to do while they do what they want. We have to crush that. We can't have people telling us what we can do to our kids because they believe it's infringing on their lives. That is a slippery slope that just goes straight into something really bad.
Yeah, really you would think
really bad.
You would think that the burden is on the person, who has more to lose at that point. Mm-hmm. But they don't want to do that.
They gave 78,000 K95 masks away for nothing.
Yeah.
They could have gone to actual nurses, first responders that needed them.
Yep. They could have had a giant eyes wide shut party.
Ooh.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.